Welcome to yet another Wind in the Willows video review, sticking with the season of autumn, of course. This is what I consider a classic, a real classic autumn episode from Series 1, The Weasels Trap. One of the darker episodes, quite scary in places, and one very, very key moment towards the end. So, yeah, great one this. So let's dive into it. So if you want to sync up with me, I'm going to press play right now. There we go. So, The Weasels Trap from Series 1, Episode 10 from Series 1. This is one of those that I was first aware of this when they brought out those storybooks. So they brought them out singly, of course, but I think I've said before, I remember getting these double ones in a shop called Volume 1 bookshop, and I think it was this one and the Grand Annual Show in one volume, and the other one it was Mole's Cousin and Alfred and the Caravan, otherwise known as The Open Road Again. So I remember reading the story and I thought, wow, it looks like an interesting episode, very interesting, and that it's very weasel heavy as the title suggests. I love these titles in this one, lovely autumnal colours. It always struck me that the title there is missing the apostrophe after the S in Weasels. If you think obviously it's plural, the Weasels Trap, as in it's their trap. Although you could say it's the Weasels Trap, as in they're going to trap someone or something. But it makes more sense to have the apostrophe. Anyway, minor point there. But it always struck me when I finally saw the episode, when it was when the series was repeated on Channel 5, that the narration, all of this was so close to the book itself. I liked that. So what I imagined was very much coming to life here. So there you go. And so you've got this opening there with Badger sort of strolling along, and then he's disturbed by something going on with the weasels. Interestingly, today I actually we took our kids to an animal farm type place, and they had some weasels, although we didn't actually see any, but they had the sign up telling you about weasels. Never realised that part of the diet was rabbits. So it's quite unnerving when I think back to this episode, and you've got the weasels threatening Billy Rabbit here, and they actually, in real life, they eat them. So it's like, ooh. But of course, it's not that true. Of course, they're human characters, really. And of course, I've said before, like with these early episodes, he's not actually properly christened as Billy Rabbit. No one refers to him as Billy. So the character evolves, and it's one of the most interesting characters in the whole series. So this was directed by Jackie Cockle, and we do have Barry Purvis animating on this, and I think he's told me about this before, you know, when the awful scene that comes towards the end of this always sticks in his mind as one of the absolute darkest moments in the entire series. I was interested about the Weasels' relationship here, when you think of the henchman and the chief. The henchman in some ways is ahead of the chief, as in he's thinking ahead, which is actually way different than how the character the henchman evolved in later episodes. Certainly by the time we get to Series 5, I mean, he was just a complete idiot, always bullied by the chief. He is bullied in this one, but as the book suggests, he's the more perceptive of the two, certainly in these early scenes. I love the way they both jump there when Badger does the stick, a lovely sort of bounce to the animation in unison. It's really nice. I also love, again, obviously we're in the thick of autumn in this episode. You see all the leaves everywhere. It's just that attention to detail. Lovely little details in this. Even Billy Rabbit's cap there. It's almost like his school uniform, and he's got this cap. But then you think later to the school days episode, and he doesn't wear any cap, and he's wearing his usual sort of red jumper. But it doesn't matter. Now, I'd love to hear, and Barry, again, if you're watching, your memories in this one. It always fascinates me how the lighting was done in the Wildwood. Um, we assume that some of these trees were fully built, but I guess most of it was just the trunks that you see, and then gizmos that you put in front of the lights and so on to get the shadow effect. But it's very, I guess the lighting was carefully handled here, even though it wasn't considered a major art form in its time. Certainly not on TV series like this. But it's lit in a way where you can actually see the detail that you need to see. So even here, where the chief is actually, there's a lot of shadow on him, but you do make out the definition in his face, you see his eyes. It's quite effective when you just see the one eye, and he's talking about getting even. See the henchman pointing at something there. The chief is showing some concern for the henchman. And there, that rusty old trap is actually based on real life traps that humans set for animals, as the chief says there. So this is one of those episodes that does actually allude to them as more animals than human. I know I just said that they're very human, of course, in the way they behave, but they are, at the end of the day, animals. And when you think of all those other episodes where we see human characters interacting with the animal characters, this is very much an episode of the animal world versus the human world, and gets you thinking. Gets you thinking of this awful thing that we, the human race, can do. Very inhumane to trap animals like that. And why would you trap animals in the woods like that, other than for food or for trying to get something, from them that's valuable? You can sell whatever, if it's their skins or whatever. But they're so realistic, traps like that did exist and do exist today. So it's very dark, that the chief's ideas here of, it never ever got darker. I mean, the Weasels have always been, very evil, and in the sense that, well, I say evil, they are evil, but they've never been quite as evil as in this one, I don't think. They cheated Toad many times, of course. When you think of the events of A Tale of Two Toads, which we'll get to in due course, I mean, that's going pretty far in terms of taking over Toad Hall with the most, dare I say it, brilliant plan that the chief has. But to actually trap Badger, to actually hurt Badger, physically hurt him, and actually, trap his leg there, and the way the chief says before the henchman, it would have had your leg. You could say that has had your leg right off, you literally removed the limb. So it's horrible. It's very dark, particularly for what you might call a children's series. I like this way that henchman goes why there. It's a classic. It's part, typical of the sense of humour of the script. And that's played on much more in later episodes, and will be funnier in later episodes. But it's nice to see it in this, one of the earliest ones. So again, out of all the episodes in all the series, there isn't one that deals with the Weasels as much as this. Another one that springs to mind is Unlikely Allies, which actually is coming up. Towards the end of autumn, we will get there. There's a lot of body language in this one as well, and even though there's much dialogue, there's a lot of you see, like the henchman there, you see him sort of waiting, and you can hear Badger come in. I love that shot of the leaves and the trap buried, hidden under there. Excuse me, and the pull focus that we have there. I also love the animation of the rabbit here, the ears, the way there's a lot of character in the ears and behaving very naturally.
It's Saturday. But please, will you come, Mr. Badger, sir? Yes, it's the hedgehog, sir.
I quite like this. There's a light-hearted quality to the episode here.
No, it's not. It's the rabbit. And they say, oh, yes, it is. And I think they might start hitting.
But despite the big morals that there are with the main events of this episode, with the trap and everything, there is actually another one here with this idea of, as Badger puts it, fences and boundaries. And this is one of, there you go, one of Badger's slogans that's worth taking a note of. When property came in, peace went out. And this is obviously one of the first times he would have said what my old father used to say, being in series 1. I love the humour there as well. The henchman, you can't, and then realise that he's being an idiot. So the sense of humour that Brian Truman established is absolutely present here, and like I say, only improves as the series progresses. So I believe Barry animated the henchman. I think Barry, I might be, if you're watching again, I'm right in saying that the henchman was one of your characters. Barry, of course, did Toad, who isn't in this episode. Ratty, and Ratty Moa in this episode, but not until towards the end. And I believe he did the henchman, so probably means that I think Sue Pugh animated on this one. So she probably would have done the chief, probably. Badger, maybe. Then he would have done the rabbit. So we got the henchman. We saw Phil Mice there watching him. The henchman's really thinking though. Where's he gonna head? Now this is funny. I love this scene. This little interlude. I love that. Don't know. Go ask me another. Brilliant little liner there. They're just useless, aren't they? Gag of layout out. Just absolutely open.
Very nice. Very nice. Now then, Badger.
Now, I know that Barry definitely animated this because I've seen it on his showreel. A showreel put together once. And it's some lovely animation. It's pantomime. You know, he's doing all the actions. He's thinking ahead. He gets trapped himself again here. Very evil. He's as evil as the chief, isn't he? He's totally. But the chief, you can see how worked up he is. He really, really wants to trap Badger. You get all these shots of, you know, you've got this build-up now, build-up of tension. And not only in the visuals, but in that lovely music. If you can call it music, it's just that. I mean, it is music, but it's very kind of abstract and kind of just notes, repetitive notes, strumming away there. It's building, it's getting louder. And there you've got henchman desperately trying to call out, and here it comes. There we go. The shot then. And we do see it once more. There it is. And it does chills up your spine, you know, it's kind of all those shots of the creatures reacting and that scream, that awful scream that just goes on and on and on. And then suddenly we're in the comfort of Ratty's home. And it's very daring. It was very, very daring to do that. We saw blood. We actually saw blood. Now, of course, we've seen blood in The Labyrinth, which I reviewed a while back, and that wasn't until Series 2. But this was 1984. I mean, I guess the time doesn't really matter, but, well, they were kind of ahead of their time. You know, you very rarely saw blood in anything aimed at children, certainly not in the decades before. But it should send a very strong message out. You know, those traps are awful things, awful devices, awful that humans would leave things like that. And the Chief Weasel's intentions were awful. And of course he got his comeuppance, so it's a beautifully constructed story with a very, very strong message. Like I say, the Chief was up to no good. He had some awful plans, and in the end he's the one that gets trapped. And serve him right, to be honest. But of course, Ratty and Mole are helping because they are the good creatures they are. And I liked just then, you know, when Ratty was, you know, he found out that it's the Chief, and then Mole was the one who actually says, "But Ratty, you know, and then Ratty knows where Mole's coming from. They are, at the end of the day, inhabitants of the same world, the same area. But the way Ratty says, you are one of us, after all." they're woodland creatures, riverbank stroke woodland creatures. They're bad creatures, but they're still creatures of the same world, you know, and that's that. And again, there's a lot of that in later episodes. You know, Badger particularly alluding to the fact that they should team up. Certainly, when you've got the railway problem in series 4, they should team up, work together, fight a greater enemy. And then in all those wonderful episodes where the Weasels show a kindly side, and the fact that they do have a heart, it makes you forgive them more, and it makes you kind of like them more. We do love to hate them, of course. They provide a lot of comedy relief, but yeah, just very, very interesting. Very interesting characters, very interesting scenario. There we go. See the blood again. You can almost feel the pain that he's in. Now this is interesting, the way Badger delivers this line of "leave it" here. Now he has got a finality to it. He has got some sort of "leave it" as if that is the end of the sentence. But I remember reading in the book, it was kind of "leave it ... and the chief butts in, "leave it." You know, what do you mean "leave it"? And then the book says something like, "Oh, Badger was going to say 'leave it to me.' He was going to add 'to me.'" But when I saw the episode, it didn't sound like he was going to say anything else. So I was never sure if that quite worked with the way the brilliant Sir Michael Hordern delivered the line. But there you go. It's fine. So it's interesting, isn't it? What a great, interesting turn of events. The fact that Badger is now helping the Chief Weasel get free of the trap. And here, where all the creatures are looking at Chief as the henchman rather, as the one who left the trap there. And he, of course, grasses up the Chief. But so he should. But they don't know that it was Badger who was going to trap, do they? So it could have been for anyone, as far as they know. But the Chief, the Weasels, of course, know the truth of the matter. I just think it's very poignant that you've got Badger helping the Chief get free of this. There we go, Ratty again. You may be thoroughly evil, but you're still one of us. And the Chief is kind of reluctantly agreeing. Feel the pain, it's just all horrible. Even though it's the Chief, no one likes to see anyone in pain like that. And yeah, it brings tears to your eyes, really. So believable, so well done. So Barry, yeah, if you're watching, you know, I'm sure, hopefully you're very proud of this episode. And this is very touching. Chief Weasel was thanking him there. Not only a couple of episodes later, we had the Pipe Book that Gates of Dawn, and when the Chief Weasel refers to the fact that Badger did him a favour once, I always assumed it was this. Bullying the henchman. Ratty Mole and Badger just look on helplessly. You can't change them, as they say. And of course the Weasels don't change, they never change. But thankfully, they don't do anything quite as dark as that in the future. So it's interesting, isn't it? How Badger's saying, "Neither do humans change," and of course it's only us humans watching the humans making the episode. Of course. So it's I've always felt this is a bit of an old last shot. He's just putting this trap in a cupboard. Just to get rid of it. It's not really getting rid of it, is it? But I guess it's out of harm's way if it's in Badger's home. But yeah, where else would you put it? I wonder how many of them. Many more in the wild wood. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts on that. Not your average episode, not a typical one, but a beautiful one in the sense that it's so well constructed, such a good idea, so well executed, and such a strong message. And I love those episodes. So yeah, let me know what you think. I love again how it's a it feels very apt for this time of year, being in the thick of the autumn and everything. And it's interesting that there aren't many episodes without Toad in them, and I never mind them. Obviously there's The Great Steamer, Buried Treasure is another one. Only in series 1, from series 2 onwards, all the characters are in the episodes, but maybe it's because we got David Jason in there still as the Chief Weasel and the Rabbit, of course. But yeah, I don't mind Toad missing, really. Gives us a nice break sometimes from him. I remember my mum saying once, she was watching one episode without him, I think it was The Great Steamer, and we were watching it thinking, it's kind of nice, more relaxing without Toad, and I kind of know where she's coming from. So there you go, The Weasels Trap. So next week, interesting one, we've got The Kidnapping of Toad next week, which was the second episode ever made. In theory, it should have been a little bit earlier. I think there's a reference to a date on note in that one, but it just felt, it was the only place I could really put it. It's not one of my favourites, if I'm honest, Kidnapping of Toad. It's one of my, dare I say it, very least favourites. But I always like to kind of explore, and every time I look at it, I try and discover more things I like about it. But be interested to hear your thoughts on it when we get to it, of course. There are some great moments in it, of course. So yeah, that one's next. Thanks as always for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Please do continue to do so. And yes, there is I should mention actually, there is an exhibition coming up in November. The Cosgrove Hall Archive presenting another exhibition. A lot of it will centre on Wind in the Willows, although Danger Mouse will be showcased. A few other shows like Noddy, Okie Doke, BFG, I think. A few other shows, but one of the highlights will absolutely be the recently discovered puppets from Wind in the Willows, so they'll be on display, and I've been helping with it. I've been helping go through some items, select some items. Some more costumes were discovered recently, which I need to kind of sort through and identify. It was just a bin bag that was in the archive somewhere, and they were discovered and filled a lot of the gaps. When I originally went through them all, about a third or so were missing, and even though it doesn't look like it's still every costume, it's wonderful to see that there's a load there that we thought were missing, so that's great. So do look out for it. I think it opens on the 14th or 15th of November, around that time. But if you go to the Waterside website, as in the Waterside in sale, you'll find more details. But yeah, that's all coming up. Lots more news and things I want to share soon, in terms of things I've been doing. I'm also going to talk before then, on the 1st of November at the Waterside in Sale. So if anyone can get there, please do. It'd be great to meet you. It'd be great to see some fellow fans. But I'm doing a talk on my collection, and not only collecting the things you can see behind me, but collecting the stories and interviews and artifacts associated with the series, all sorts of stuff. So I'm just going to talk about that and what I plan to do with it in the future as well, and kind of hint at the book that I'm hopefully going to write very soon. I'm putting the proposal together at the moment, and we'll see, hopefully. So the more interest there is, as in you watching these, leaving comments, the more, the stronger case I'll have for all of that. So yeah, thanks very much for the ongoing support, and I shall see you next week for The Kidnapping of Toad. Thanks a lot. See you then.